Good afternoon. It's 3 o'clock on Monday afternoon. Ready again for public input on the budget. If there's anyone here in the public would like to speak to budget and budget issues, you're welcome to go to the podium on my left and provide us with your name and address and your views.
Thank you, Your Worship, Council, staff. Again, my name's Don Tucker. I live at 3006 Gateby Place here in Vernon. I won't take too much time this afternoon. First, I'll just say thank you to all staff for all their presentations and for their hard work on this year's budget and for all the work that they do in the city. It's appreciated by all residents, and thank you to Mayor and Council for listening to me today. I'll just address this short-term rental program. I think it's something that has come up quite a bit with residents when that subject is discussed. I'll disagree with Mr. Barton a little bit when he talked about sort of the fact that there's sort of this exponential growth happening. One of the things that's noticed as my family owns a building, we're landlords, and one of the things that's sort of been seen, I think, with the new regulations, there's been a bit of a retraction. I'll sort of echo what Councillor Garris said in terms of the fact that I think what's been seen, at least with businesses that I've talked to and a lot of others, is that there's been a lack of short-term rentals, at least this year, and that with the new provincial regulations, and I think also with sort of what's been passed in terms of the new short-term rental zones, and I think it's those zones that are also in part to blame, at least in Vernon, for quite the contraction of short-term rentals. I know there's a lot of people in Vernon who would like to do short-term rentals even under the new system, but the way that there have been the imposition of the new zones with the hillside zones and the lake zone and that kind of thing, it's actually cut out a lot of people that potentially would like to do them. There are people who would like to do them in the downtown area and in Alexis Park and in East Hill, but under the rules that council have passed, they're unable to. So if it's something that we're looking to use as a revenue generator, it's something that maybe we want to look at either removing those zones now that we have these new provincial regulations, which weren't in the mix when we were planning that out and discussing it in terms of short-term rental regulations for our community, or limiting the number we have in each area, much like we did for cannabis operations and those kinds of things, or just revisiting that aspect and looking at maybe what we envision for growth potential for our community and what we're looking at. Because I think in terms of accommodations, I think short-term rentals do play a role in this community. I think there are a lot of people who don't want to be landlords for long-term rentals, especially since we haven't seen changes from the provincial government to the RTB. The Residential Tenancy Act is still a very onerous act, and a lot of people are not wanting to deal with that. And I think that it is an important alternative to hotel accommodation, and the provincial government has now stepped in to provide some regulation in that aspect, and I think it's important for our tourism industry as well. I also want to address the aspect of kicking things down the road. I think we're now seeing the negative aspect of kicking things down the road despite good intentions when we're talking about the issue of the parks. And this is twofold. Firstly, when we ignore something and it gets to the point where things have degraded and now we're suffering and we're having to spend a whole pile of money, and this is something that's obviously evident in a number of our parks. And parks are super important for all residents, especially those that can not afford to go to places that cost a lot of money. And so it's important that we invest in our parks, and I think it's important that we invest in our parks today and not 3 years from now because we're investing in an indoor facility. Parks are important to families now, and especially during a downturn in the economy, because those are the same people that can't afford to go somewhere else and spend money to recreate. While also recognizing that we don't want to keep increasing the budget. I think it is important to take a look at using maybe some of the unexpended balanced funds that are in existence to fund that aspect at this point in order to put some money into our parks until such time as we have it, since this council made the decision to defer that money and kick it down the road to a point now where you have a difficult decision of, well, now we're going to overprice our residents out of the ability to pay for this budget. And now we can't really fund this because we've got other priorities that we have to, like the RCMP and fire, and we've got some other operating costs. So I think there's some responsibility to be taken here by this council and consider residents in that fact and use that unexpended money for parks, which is something residents truly need at this time as well. And to recognize that parks are something that we have, and we have to maintain what we have. We can't just keep adding lots of extra trails because we need to buy them now. We have to maintain what we have for people to be able to use. Not everybody uses trails. A lot of families use parks, and those parks need to be maintained. And I think it's important that we start investing in them and maintaining what we have. I mean, one that I keep writing letters on, of course, is the one by Freshco, and it's important because a lot of people spend time in our inner city parks and in our parks downtown and in our communities and our neighborhoods. And my hope is that we start to take a look at where that usage is and invest in them for the long term. And there's some opportunities to do that. And again, I hope to come back in February and talk a little bit more about some opportunities for the city to take advantage of grant programs and other things to perhaps look at ways that we can do that creatively as well. Because I think we need to start looking at creative funding sources to bring money into our community for our downtown and for our community as a whole. Thank you for listening to me today in the community input session. I wish more community would come out, but I understand why they don't. Yeah, and if you have any questions, I'm welcome to answer those.
Councillor Journey.
So I just wanted to thank you for presenting this morning and this afternoon and for your interest in the process that happens here and its importance to our community. I do also want to validate your thinking around the parks and how imperative it is for us to not give up on, maintaining those and investing in that. And so I just wanted to leave you with knowing that I'm hearing you and appreciate it.
Contractor, much appreciate you coming out and talking to us both this morning and this afternoon. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, we'll return to our agenda. We had a motion on the floor.